Hello, dearly beloveds, or dearly belotheds.
We gather here today.
We don't loathe you,
No.
but we are gathered here today for a very sad event for Marrok's #1 fan club.
Yep.
Guys, he did it. It took him actually. You know what? We shouldn't even be sad because
He made it through half the show.
Yeah, he made it through half the season. That's 3 times as long as I thought he was going to make it. So,
And he turned into sewer gas? I'm not sure what that was.
Dearly beloved, we gather here to say our goodbyes. Here he lies. No one knew his worth.
Nope.
The late great brother of the Inquisitor.
Never saw his face.
That was a Rent reference.
Never seen it.
Okay, well
I know the 12,000, 6,500,
you've
something
already fucked it up. So.
That's all I know about it.
Yeah, I mean, Mark died, but we're not actually really that. I mean, it was a cool fight. So
Yeah, it was cool.
He was an Inquisitor. He did the most Inquisitor thing that he could do, which was, look cool, lightsaber go. Brrr. It's like, oh, when the lightsaber did the thing, like, did you know he was gonna die then?
I did when it came back to it and he did the charge.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, this is gonna be like a moment from like a samurai movie where there's just like once, and then all of a sudden there's like blood coming out. Except that it was
instead it was like an explosion of ash.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It was green.
Maybe.
I thought maybe he's like a reanimated.
You
like
think he's still the 8th brother, but he's a reanimated corpse?
Could be. He could have been reanimated.
Oh, Night Sister
That's
magic.
what I was just about to say.
Oh,
they reanimate. That's their whole shtick.
That is a thing.
And they're always got the green
Why
stuff.
she would have been on Malachor, I don't know, but
no idea.
But hey, that's our. You know what? It's better than the theory that I posed last week. You know what? Honestly, what happened in the show was better than what I posed last week. So,
it wouldn't be the first time someone showed up to a random planet and pulled somebody's body out and saved them.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We're fine here. This is my glass of copium, and we're coping just fine. Anyways, now that that's out of the way, we can talk about the actual episode. Yeah, it was cool. So, what did you love most about this episode?
Sabine siding with Balaam.
Yeah, you heard it here first on the Baddies Loving podcast that we love it when a good character gets led astray.
I love it when characters are allowed to make bad decisions.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of bad decisions in this episode across the board. There were lots of. My middle section for this episode is called Choices and Consequences.
Yes.
Because there were quite a few made, and some made apparently some choices and consequences from before this series even started that we're just now starting to find out about. So we can jump back into that for just a moment. I just wanted to, kind of hit some other highlights that I felt were in the episode. Obviously, every single one of the fights was incredible.
All the fights are great.
The choreography is outstanding. The music goes so well with it.
And they're doing a lot of maybe it's just the new smell on it, but like a lot of the music is like they're doing a lot of different stuff with it. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily like the same Star Wars theme tweaked a little bit. Yeah. They got like a lot of weird instruments and
we did get one moment this episode with a little bit of an old theme splashed in at the very, very end there. That was so gratifying. But maybe it stands out more because we don't have it all the time, right? Like, because it's not like, oh, we've got the Twin Suns theme and, oh, we've got Duel of the Fates and everything sprinkled in here. Because it is so new, when we get that just a few little slow notes of the Imperial March, it really was like,
yeah,
it's so good. I also wanted to talk about how this episode kind of felt like a little bit of an Empire Strikes Back in that, like, our protagonists of lose across the board here.
Yeah.
I don't think that we've necessarily... It's been a while since we've had, like... Okay, so first of all, did you think that Jason and Hera were in peril?
Oh, yeah.
You thought they were gonna maybe...
I thought, like, are they gonna go out of the way? Because, like, I mean, I know the thing is a big ring, but, like, normally when you jump into hyperspace, I mean, they did it in episode 8.
Yeah,
and it cut a whole ass ship in half.
Yes, it did.
I was concerned. I mean, I was like, I don't want to kill the kid, but I was definitely like,
I thought maybe it would be, unfortunately, the end for Hera, and I was like super concerned. But the fact that Jason was with her, I'm like,
no.
That seems a little dark. I don't think that they would be like, oh, look, isn't it nice you get Kanan and Hera's precious baby back, and then death. Yeah. I did not think that they were gonna go, especially like right after like there's like another presumed loss with Ahsoka. It's like, man, if they killed Ahsoka and Hera and Jason in one episode of a show, no way.
Obviously, Ahsoka. I mean, I knew as soon as Ahsoka fell off the edge, like how many times has a character fallen off a cliff in every piece of media ever made, and then they're fine. You know what I mean?
You better be okay.
Oh, he's not. He's super dead. He's not. He's one of the rare occasions where someone fell off a ledge and actually died.
If they don't show the body on screen, they're still alive.
You just keep holding on to that.
I don't think he is. I think he's dead.
He's super dead.
I think he's super dead, but that's fine.
I put one out. I thought maybe like, I know they get into some stuff in different maybe books about like how hyperspace works, like more in depth. But I thought maybe if they got caught up in the jump, that they maybe would have been like displaced somewhere.
Oh, that's an interesting theory.
I don't know.
We're glad they're okay. It was like super like crazy though to see like X-wings getting blown up. That was like nuts.
Yeah, I mean they they didn't die. They just killed. They killed off like. They're not their wedge, but their bigs and their whatever, like from the run.
That Rodion.
That Rodian.
Rodian. I thought that having a Rodian was really cool. They're like low-key.
They immediately fucking murdered them.
Low-key one of my favorite species in Star Wars. Like, I've just always thought that they were really neat, and they have a Rodian that you just immediately... Just like the Mon Calamari.
It's just like the Mon Calamari.
Like in the first episode, I'm like, oh,
he's so cute.
He's so cute with his... Oh gosh. Okay. All right. So those were some
It's a real xenophobic show. I'm starting to realize, real human centric, huh?
Well, if they're paying the face actors, then they have to come back week after week. Mark didn't show his face. That was his doom.
Yep.
That was his doom. Let's see. What else did we? I mean, obviously we loved the moment at the end, but we'll talk about that. That deserves its own section.
Yes.
To be honest, I don't think there was a moment of this that I did not love. So some of these we will get to more in depth as we go. Another kind of thing that was interesting to me, we don't know like a super lot about Morgan, but when she's like, I loved the moment where she's just like smiling. She's like, make the jump.
Make the jump, yeah.
Like so sinister and so like evil. I love that.
All the stuff with the map has been very video gamey in terms of like how she got it, and then they put it on a pedestal and it lights this whole place up. I mean, it's very like, obviously like it makes you think of the Jedi games, but that pulls a lot from like Legend of Zelda and stuff like that. Like, you get everything lined up and then you have this huge like thing that unlocks, and that's very like, I think that it fits perfectly. Like, why wouldn't you have this wild thing on the edge of a cliff that like makes a bunch of runes pop up? Why not? I mean, it's Star Wars.
Yeah. So the next section of my notes is called Choices and Consequences. So right from like the very beginning of this episode, we are like presented with a series of decisions that characters need to make, and them basically choosing the worst possible option.
doing a real bad job. It's like they saved up all of the like mistakes for one episode.
But I love that. I love that our characters are allowed to make mistakes. Sometimes in media we don't get that. Like, everything has to be like, it has to work out in the end, and like we're at the mid-season point, and like these characters' choices did not work out for them.
Yeah.
So like right away we have this like actually kind of nice moment with Hu Yang. Like, obviously, him and the assassin droids was kind of a cool thing, and he's like screaming, "Help! Help!" Like very C-3PO like. Even though he kind of kicks butt a little bit. Like, I mean, he's a pretty good fighter for 2,000.
Yeah, I mean, he's
25,000-year-old droid, right?
He's definitely. I mean, the help thing was C-3PO, but everything else is very capable. He did not like waddle away like C-3PO.
No, he fought like a bear.
Yeah.
No, like a robot.
Like a robot.
Anyway.
Yeah, those the things that he was using with training with Sabine that had like the extra lightsabers, like he just stabbed it in the face.
Yes, that was super cool. I liked that droid fight action. Anyway, so there's this kind of touching moment where Sabine and Ahsoka are about to go off, and he tells them that they should stay together because they always work better that way.
Yep.
Which I thought was really nice. It's kind of a poignant moment given how episode 3 went. Like, episode 3, they did all, like, we were raving about how good of a team they were working together in episode 3. So, like, that felt like kind of a nice touch point. And then, like, the fact that, like, both of them, like, take a second to, like, breathe and acknowledge that and say, yeah, we will. We will stick together. And then they immediately split up.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, they go off together, but then they're presented with, you know, 2 conflicts, and then they get separated because of that. And that's when things start to go really haywire for them, right?
Yeah.
So they immediately, they were presented with the choice of like, hey, stay together or go apart. And like, they have an advisor character who's like, stay together, you do better that way. And then they separate, and then everything goes very poorly, right?
Very
So that was like our first choice and consequence, right? Is as a consequence. Now Ahsoka wins her fight.
Yes.
But they still have to separate because she needs to stop what's happening. And to be fair, she clears this choice. Like, Sabine like tells her to go, or that's what happens, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Sabine tells her to go. So they do kind of have this moment where like they both choose this. It's not like circumstances tore them apart from each other.
It also felt like Shin like lured Sabine away.
Yes, for sure. I think that like Sabine's character, like being a Mandalorian and everything, she's like very hot-headed, and I felt like she like needed that.
Yeah, and it was at first I was like, why would
that redemption? Almost.
Why would Shin run away? Like, she's got a close-up weapon, right? But then it's like, oh, they get him very far away and they separate them. It's like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah, because Marrok and Shin's whole goal there was just to delay.
Yeah.
It wasn't to kill, although it maybe seems like Shin maybe a little bit wants to kill Sabine.
I would say, yeah.
Maybe a wee bit, given a moment that we have later on when she like... that was dark. That was awesome. I loved it. The music in that part too.
That whole sequence was really good.
Okay, so we have them separate, and then obviously that results in Ahsoka's fight with Baylan, which I also thought was like a really neat moment of non-Jedi and non-Jedi. And Ahsoka gets very angry in this fight too. Like, she loses a little bit of that. Like, so far she's been like very, I'm not a Jedi, but still like very much acting like a Jedi. And then in this episode is kind of the first time we see her like make like an angry choice.
Emotional decision.
Yes, exactly. She makes an emotional decision, which is I think a very nice contrast, because she's very much telling Sabine that like, you need to make the rational decision. You need to not make the emotional decision here. The emotional decision would be to go find Ezra, because he's the only family you think you have left.
Yeah.
Which immediately we were like, well, what happened to our Mandalorian family? And then it was answered.
Yeah, they all died.
Gratification. They're all dead.
They're all dead.
R.I.P. Ursa and Tristan and I forget her dad's name already. R.I.P. everyone. There's a lot of death. Off screen though. We can't kill Tristan and Ursa on screen.
Nope.
So dark. But she says you need to make the rational decision here. And like Ezra, in like the very beginning of the show, this is already seeded, because she's watching the hologram of Ezra, and he says being a Jedi means that sometimes you have to make the choice that no one else will. And so Sabine like fails at being a Jedi in this episode. And it's very interesting, because like there's that moment where she and Shin are fighting, and she like raises her hand, like you think that she's gonna use the Force, and instead she uses her wrist rockets.
Well, she tries.
Right.
And
but
she fails miserably, which it should have.
She fails to. So, like, she failed at being a Jedi, and she failed to harness the Force, and she uses her wrist rocket. She's getting back into that Mandalorian thing. And now we kind of have a reason why, like, the shots have really lingered on her. She's been out of her Mandalorian uniform more than she's been in it.
Yeah.
In the show. She's been out of her armor a lot of the show. And there's been a lot of, like, shots focused on her helmet and everything. And, like, I mean, she loses her helmet in this fight, like, immediately, and it's just lying on the ground, and there's a shot that, like, is going on it. And now we understand why that part is so hard for her, because she feels like she failed her Mandalorian family.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, well, it's more pressing that we find Ezra, but you're also making decisions that separate you from your Jedi family as well.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think, at the time, I wasn't putting all that together, but in retrospect, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. I was just caught up in how cool it was.
Well, yeah. Easy to do.
I wasn't thinking a lot about the implications of it. It was just like, wow.
Yeah. So, like, not to jump ahead, because we still have more choices and consequences to talk about. But, Sabine now thinks that Hera and Jason are. Well, I don't know if she knows that Jason was on board the Ghost, but, like, she certainly would know that Hera was on board the Ghost. And
yes.
And so she thinks that Ahsoka's dead.
So she Ahsoka for all?
She was there for that fight. That's what made Ahsoka push Baylan.
Was she being held?
She was, like, unconscious, or she got, like, thrown against a rock.
That's right. Yeah.
So, like, for all, like,
she gets knocked out, and all of a sudden she comes back and Ahsoka's not there, and Baylan is. So
right,
the implication.
Exactly. So, like, obviously in the moment she's, like, caught up with the choice about the ball, which I thought the way this was presented was so weird. And, like, the slow hesitation, the build up, the build up,
and it was so good.
It was so gratifying, just because, I mean, we like it from a story perspective, and also we like baddies here, so, like, sometimes it's cool when baddies get to do something, like, you know.
Well, I mean, there's no, like, if you have a good character that's just good all the time, it doesn't have any impact. Yeah. Like, it's not impressive because they don't show any variety, and there's no stakes if you know they're always going to, like, do the right thing. So having her, like, be super conflicted and actually give into this, which I think it makes sense what she did.
I agree.
To be honest, if I was in her position, I would have done the same thing. Because you think everyone else is dead, and the last person you know is Ezra, and so you want to see Ezra. So I completely understand. It's like, not only was it good from a story perspective, it was good because it allowed a good character to, like, have moral failings, kind of.
Yeah, and I assume that now, especially, like, the ramifications of her choice are, like, pretty immediate. Like, she thinks Ahsoka's dead, she thinks Hera's dead, she thinks her family's dead. Like, who's left for her? You know, like, I think that if anything, it would, like, reinforce how badly she needs to find Ezra. So, I mean, I think that she's, like, you can sense that she regrets it immediately. I think, especially when Baylan actually destroys it. I think you can really get a sense that she's like,
well, and then she's in handcuffs. She watches, because aren't they standing to the side, like, she's, like, cuffed, and then
Shin has already choked her.
Yeah.
Which I think that this shows something interesting about the dynamic between Shin and Baylan, because I think that Shin is kind of worried about being replaced in a sense, which is strange, because why would she be worried about being replaced by someone who can't use the Force?
I don't know. I thought that she just, like, I just kind of see her between her and Baylan. I see her as, like, the. I mean, it's the same, like, dichotomy. Like, you have the exact same mirror, right? You have Ahsoka and Sabine. You have the calm, level-headed one who's in charge of everything, and then you have, like, the hothead, emotional one. And I think the same thing as Baylan and Shin. So what I took from that was just, like, Shin just sees the enemy and is like, kill. Okay, and then Baylan's like, hey, I made a promise.
Yeah.
I'm not anything. I'm a man of my word.
Yeah, I think that too, like, Baylan to me is definitely more like holding himself to the principles of a Jedi, even though he's clearly not one. He's clearly evil, but he's still holding himself to kind of that level of principle. And Shin to me is more like on the Sith side of things, where she's not I mean, and he doesn't really seem to be reinforcing any kind of emotional regulation training with her. And he is saying, like, let's seek power and everything. So, like, it's almost like Shin is more of, like, the Sith, and Baylan is more kind of, like, in the middle. Still leaning Sith, but not, like, truly all the way.
Yeah, I see that.
Although the choice that he presents to Sabine feels very Palpatine-esque, you know, like like you want this is the only thing that will reunite you with your loved ones, like sort of playing on that emotional side of things.
You can save your wife in her pregnancy.
I'm Ezra?
No, I'm saying that's the Palpatine thing.
Like, I was making a joke.
Oh, okay.
It's like, yes, you can save your wife.
Your wife, Ezra.
Ezra.
We don't know what's happened in those 10 years.
Hey, good for her.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I think that's kind of a good breakdown. I think the note I have on here is, are the choices justified? And I think that they are. And also, back in the rebellion days, like, it was kind of like Luke chose his friends over, like, the Jedi and the greater good all the time. Mm. And there was something about the rebellion being focused on individuals, right? And, like, Hera, like, in very early Rebels, Ezra gets captured, and Hera says, no, we have to go back. Like, we have to go get this boy. We brought him into this. So, like,
yeah, it's like episode 1, right? You know,
yeah,
2,
yeah, it's very, very early on. They go back for him, and that clearly meant so much to him. And like we've discussed on this show, like, Ezra's been alone most of his life, so, like, obviously it's a very compassionate decision to want to go back for him. The question is, like, at what point does it just become about you and your feelings versus wanting what's best for Ezra?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you, like, take, like, a 5,000-foot view of it, it's like you can see the compassion and whatnot. But I really think in that instance it was her.
I think so too.
Making that decision.
I agree. I think that Hera's side of it is, like, that true, like, the rebellion, like, every man matters. We need to do everything in our power, and we see that. Like, she defies her orders to go get, you know, to Sabine and Ahsoka, but presumably because she knows that that's kind of the way to Ezra. Like, she does it within the framework of the rebellion, and every man matters, we're a family. Like, if we just view things just truly by numbers, then we're making the same mistakes as the Republic. And the New Republic.
And the Empire.
And the Empire. And everyone. It's like, that is what allows you to make that, like, greater good call will put you in those other categories. And what made the rebellion so different, and I think what makes the Ghost Crew so lovable, what makes the Mantis Crew so lovable, like, when we're talking about individual rebel groups, is because they do have that dedication to each other.
Yeah.
So I think Hera is acting on sort of that through line. Sabine, it feels like it's a little different. To me, like you said, I think that to Sabine, it's more about, like, well, Sabine is trying to clutch onto that emotional tie.
Yeah. And
I think that's why Ezra's message is so poignant to her. It's like, you have to make decisions that no one else will as a Jedi. But
she's not a Jedi.
She's not.
So, and again, like, obviously the Jedi had their problems and they paid the price for it. So it's not a perfect approach to anything either. Yeah. And I think, you know, what I like is that obviously we know that Thrawn is going to show up, right? So this is one of those things where that's like, okay, we know that happens, or we assume that happens. We have every reason to assume that happens based on how this was advertised.
Correct. And also we are on the way now.
Well, so the point I'm getting to is that they let it happen. They had it happen in a way that was like a much more meaningful way to get to something that was already established that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Instead of just them, like, if it had just been like they got the map and they delayed them long enough to make the jump.
Yeah.
And then whatever else. But they had it happen because Sabine handed the map over. I think it was a much more interesting way to get to an established point where we knew that.
I agree. I think that, it was kind of strange because, people were upset that they're, taking this long to, get to, presumably what we thought the show was about. But I think the pacing has made the payoff, really excellent.
It has. I mean, they're
going to have a lot to cram into 4 episodes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's again, it was one of the things we talked about when we talked about the first 2 episodes, which is that we just watched a quarter of the show and it wasn't a whole lot done.
I think that while I'm happy with what we've been given so far, I think that they probably it does. Maybe it's a little rushed. Maybe if we had a few more episodes, we could have really chopped this up a little more. But I think thematically, especially because the show is called Ahsoka, and it's supposed to be about the challenges of being a gray Jedi and being kind of in between and everything. It's really doing a great job of exploring.
I think so too.
I'm
really happy with where we are at.
This is exceeding our expectations by a lot.
Yeah.
So, any complaint that we have is really minor in the grand scheme of things. This is really blowing us away. Okay. So, we said we're at the halfway point. The way this episode ends is so incredible. I want to ask you, do you think Ahsoka is dead?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, that's not a very interesting...
Do you have any justification for that?
I mean, if she's dead, she's still going to be able to interact. There's no way she's dead. Sorry. I can't... There's no way.
Well, she's in the world between worlds, presumably. It is
But that's not, purgatory in Star Wars, is it?
No, but, how did she get there?
I mean, I don't know that. I'm not saying I have the answers, but,
Okay.
that would be such a dissatisfying way to end her character.
We have her... Well, there is something about the scene which is very satisfying, and that's...
Right.
She gets to see Anakin,
Anakin
Anakin. Yeah. And that's why it's kind of, strange that this is kind of he seems it's not like when we see a Force ghost. His body is there.
Yeah.
Right? And he says, "Hey, Snips, I didn't expect to see you so soon."
Yeah, that was weird.
So that's
kind of...
yeah.
It was
well, yeah, when we're in the moment, we're no, that can't be. It's Anakin.
Yeah.
So this really feels like a bunch of callbacks to Malachor, which it should, because that was the last time that Anakin and Ahsoka interacted with each other.
Yeah.
So we have
This is the first time they introduced worlds, right?
It was not introduced in that episode.
Oh, right. They introduce it later and they go back.
And that's how they pull...
fix.
That's how they pull Ahsoka out. So that's how Ahsoka escapes Malachor. So again, that's one tie to Malachor. 2, I know this is really minor, but the last time we saw the 8th brother, that masked, European European night masked Inquisitor, he was flying away and he fell and presumably died on Malachor. And now we have Marrok, who looks pretty much the same. Within the confines of we're turning animated characters into live action, he looks close enough.
Yeah.
I think he is supposed to look like him, whether or not he is him or not. I think it's very intentional, this choice. And he dies in this episode just like the 8th brother dies on Malachor. And on Malachor we have Ahsoka fighting Darth Vader, and his mask gets cut away and she can see that it's Anakin. And it's kind of Anakin is dead, but he's clearly not. And then she escapes by going through the world between worlds. The aesthetic of the planet is very Sith and black and red and everything. The aesthetic of this Cetos is it's supposed to be like Night Sister, but it's also very dark and red and gloomy. Yeah. And desolate, alone. So
doesn't seem to be anybody else there.
Or the animals.
Yeah, it's weird.
Well, the Purrgil were there, but on the island itself, we haven't seen that. On the island itself, there's weirdly no creatures lurking around in the forest or anything. So we have like these two like very similar things. So like to like kind of reverse it and bring back Anakin at this precise moment. Oh, and we have like a weapon firing, like in both instances, like kind of the episode ends with like a big weapon firing. In this case, it's like the hyperspace ring going forward and everything, and then in the other one, it's like the physical temple. So like I think that there's I think that there are intentional similarities between the two, and a lot of people had asked me that privately, knowing how much I'm into the Inquisitor. They're like, well, why would they bring back the eighth brother, or why would they have an Inquisitor that looks like the eighth brother? And I think this is the answer right here. I think that we are supposed to connect Twilight of the Apprentice and this episode.
Yeah.
And it pays off beautifully with the look on her face when she sees like Anakin again. I think that everybody wanted the completion of that arc, even if we didn't know we wanted it.
Yeah,
we wanted
Twilight of
it.
the Apprentice is one of the greatest episodes
Of Star Wars television period. Yeah, I agree. Which is hard for me to say given my my predilections, but no, I'll give it that. Yeah. It's very good.
Yeah, it was wild to. Yeah, I mean, I think what they're gonna, like you said, he's not a Force ghost.
No.
And the world between worlds is not presented as like an afterlife. It's
we know very little about it. To be honest, we know very little about it. But we do know that you can hit select moments in time, like you can like time travel in the world between worlds, because Ezra is presented with the choice to save Kanan,
right?
And he knows that he can't. So we know that time travel is possible in the world between worlds. But it does feel like this knowing, like, it feels like it's fully completed arc Anakin. Like, it feels like this is post Return of the Jedi Anakin.
Oh,
doesn't
right.
It? Like, I mean, the way that he speaks and everything, and, like, kind of like that like, peace.
Right.
He's been, and everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, because he had the whole thing with Luke. He pulled his helmet off and he burned his body and he shows up.
Yeah. So, like, it feels very much like that. So that's why, like, you were immediately like, no, she can't be. And I'm like, well, it kind of feels like it could be. I don't, like, it would be weird. It would be a strange choice to, like, kill Ahsoka off screen like that.
Halfway through the show named after her.
Yeah, that would be strange. But it does make me question. Which is, I think, good. Like, I mean, especially to, like, not have all of the answers right away. Like, speculation is always very fun in Star Wars. So, I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly just a wild way to end an episode.
Yeah, it is. Especially with the end, doing the Imperial March at the end.
Yeah.
What could that mean?
Yeah, it was really bizarre.
Isn't that strange?
So ominous.
So yeah, that was kind of an ominous, like, it ended on an ominous note, and in the beginning, when it was flashing through the helmets and everything, and it showed Marrok's with a blue light, which is, like, hilarious, but it also showed Sabine's with a red light.
Yeah.
Which I don't think Sabine's going to turn. I don't want that, and I don't expect that, but she does make decisions which benefit our antagonist more than our protagonist,
yes.
So maybe that was a bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah, it could have been, yeah.
It could have been nothing.
Yeah.
But
don't know.
Yeah. So this is like a very exciting way to end, like, to have our halfway point. That's crazy. So what do you think we can expect from here on out? Like, how are we gonna get the rest of the show about Ahsoka? Like, what's gonna happen? What do you think, anyway?
I mean, I think what would be interesting is if there's a way to connect the world between worlds to, like, the other galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why couldn't they? The world between worlds seems to be
we don't know very much about the world between worlds. So
no, but I think it's one of those things. It's not a Deus Ex Machina. Well, maybe it is a Deus Ex Machina. I think it is, actually. Which is fine. I mean, that shows up all the time in Star Wars. It's whatever. But it's like, this seems like kind of a tool they can use to just kind of, like, accomplish stuff that might not be really possible or feasible otherwise. Yeah. So I could see them somehow connecting that after, obviously, dialogue between Ahsoka and Anakin.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to see that scene. Surely goes longer than that. Like I cannot wait to see their full interaction.
Yes, I need that. But yeah, I think I wonder what they're gonna do in terms of like, are we gonna actually see the other galaxy, or are we just going to have them show back up?
I certainly hope so. I hope that someone at Lucasfilm has enough imagination to give us like a whole, what a different galaxy would feel like within Star Wars, and how Star Wars is it going to feel.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like, I mean, if we go by like our own concept of like what galaxies are, I mean, it's like another random assortment of stuff that's developed. But like, obviously, the way that Star Wars has been built up, it gives the Star Wars galaxy like a distinct feel.
Plot twist: they travel to our galaxy.
Yeah. Star Trek.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so, and I would not want that.
No, that's not gonna be that. But yeah, I mean, it's weird to. It made me remember that there's a ton of empty space in space, and there's like vast, unimaginable areas of our universe that are just filled with like hydrogen gas, essentially, and that's it for like an incomprehensible distance.
So, go ahead.
So just like the fact that they're addressing that, and then this is something that also came up a lot in the EU. Like if anybody read any of the books with the EU's on long, like there was a whole thing about how they had to travel from their crazy coral galaxy to ours. So,
my thoughts. Do you think that they will be going to an uninhabited galaxy, or do you think the galaxy they are going to will be inhabited? Like, what if Ezra and Thrawn have like truly been alone the whole time? Like, do you think that where they're going,
they're going to look like Robin Williams when he comes out of the Jumanji board?
There was another. Oh, that wasn't a Robin Williams. That was a Tom Hanks movie, right? Castaway.
Oh, Castaway. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those. I mean, odds are, obviously, like the Star Wars galaxy is cool because it has all these inhabited planets, all these crazy races, but like we don't have anything here, right? Like, I mean, statistically, there's something out there, but we haven't, interacted with it yet. So,
spoiler alert: the planets they land on are not conducive to life, and they just immediately died.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
No, I mean, but it could be just a galaxy that never, or they never had like, it could be a galaxy that has a couple of inhabited planets, but they never reached interstellar travel because that's a huge, a concept called a filter, right, to society. Like you have to pass filters to get to the next level. And interstellar travel is a big one. We're still working on that.
Yeah. Another possibility is in the Ascendancy books, and obviously I expect that work that's about Thrawn may pull from those works. There is a threat that is the Chiss are trying to get away or fight their own. There's like a very mysterious force that's coming in and taking force sensitive Chiss away from their planet. So some have posited that maybe that enemy, which I apologize for not knowing the name of, but that enemy could be on this galaxy. My one kind of thought about that is that if that were the case, I feel like Thrawn would be more invested in kind of staying over there and like investing resources into that threat, as opposed to coming back and being like the heir to the Emperor. Unless he thinks that by building up the Empire, he can better help
I think that was
the Chiss Ascendancy fight whatever this force on the galaxy would be.
Well, they're in a weird spot where they've taken this character that was huge in the extended universe and have like put him into the new canon.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, from what I recall, that was kind of the original thing. Was like he had like an ulterior motive than just like becoming another Imperial leader or whatever. But like trying to like work that into what they have now is maybe a little more difficult and unclear.
Mm-hmm. I really need to read those books. I might have a better answer for you all if I had read those.
Right. Listen to the first one.
Yeah, we've read the first one, but that's not any of the stuff that deals with the Ascendancy.
No, it was good.
It was. But kind of coming back to Ahsoka here for a minute. One thing that I think would be interesting about exploring this galaxy, and I think that we should talk about, we just actually got back from a convention this past weekend, so that's why we're both like super stuffy, because we have all the con crud goodness and everything like that. We've been to several talks at this convention about like what makes Star Wars, what makes the feel of Star Wars, and what makes it sort of like an aesthetic accumulation of things. So do you think when we go to another galaxy, it should still feel like that familiar thing that we know, or should it explore something totally different?
I don't know what that would look like. I mean, I think
that's not our job to figure out. We don't work at Lucasfilm.
No, I know, but I'm trying to imagine something. You're positing something that like doesn't look like Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. Within Star Wars.
That's feasible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm gonna keep thinking that you're wrong.
Well, so the reason this discussion came up is we went to a panel with Fawn Davis and Cassette. What's her last name? Colette. Something along those lines. Colette. The book is downstairs in my bag because I'm currently reading it. But anyways, we were talking about Star Wars definitely has a look and a feel, and sometimes it's a little difficult to nail that down. But people who work at Lucasfilm work very hard and practice on making the Star Wars aesthetic. And we've also been to talks with Doug Chang, and been to an art class with him before too, where he kind of talks about like what he's going through when he's designing for things in the Star Wars universe. And one of the things that comes up over and over and over again is lived in.
Oh, yeah.
There's kind of like a broken down, a historical aspect of things. Everything's got kind of a layer of grime on it. Those are all things that we associate with the Star Wars aesthetic. And also too that like characters in Star Wars always treat their technology as mundane. Like when Luke Skywalker sees so the Colette is a professor of like the puppetry and performing arts and everything, and she wrote a book called A Galaxy of Things, which kind of goes through it mainly focuses on like puppetry and material characters and everything, but it also goes into like super vibrant objects, like things that exist within the Star Wars universe that kind of take on a life of their own because of the material aspect of them, like things like this guy right here. I'm going to be very gentle. This walker, which obviously is an inanimate thing, it's a weapon, but it moves like an animal, and it takes a life of its own beyond just being a machine. Exactly.
It's not like a tank or a truck or something.
Exactly. So like, and Darth Vader's helmet that Kylo Ren talks to is like obviously that like it's like the skull that Hamlet like talks to, right? Like
object,
it has more of a life of its own than just like a normal prop, right? Yeah. Like anything can be a prop. Like look at the little golden idol thing in the first Indiana Jones movie. That's just a prop, right? We don't think of or assign any other meaning to it beyond it being a prop. And Star Wars is kind of different in that aspect. And Fawn Davis mentioned that they used to play a game at Lucasfilm on their lunch breaks where they would draw little like simple shapes on a Post-it note and show them to each other and say Star Wars or Star Trek, right? And that's how they would nail down the aesthetic of what is Star Wars. So it's interesting the idea of visiting somewhere like because a new galaxy feels like it should be totally different from our galaxy far, far away.
Yeah,
it feels like it should, but at the same time, we are making a Star Wars show. So how do we make a Star Wars show that takes place somewhere unfamiliar without it being like, well, this is just Tatooine 3.0?
Do you think they're going to try to do that? Or are they just going to, like, stick with the ship? You know what I mean?
Oh, you think that the ship is just going to be floating in space and they're not going to be, like,
it might be near a planet. But, like...
I mean, it's been,
so many planets
so many years. Like, how are they going to be alive if they're just on the ship?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that would be a lot to, like... like, bring up and, like, address in any kind of decent way in like 4 episodes of television. I don't know.
Hey, I mean, these creatives are very good.
I'm not saying they're not.
So you don't think that they're going to spend a lot of time in this new galaxy? That they're just going to like?
I don't think so. I think they're going to like because if they're over there in the other galaxy, the only conflict they have is just Ezra.
What do you mean by that?
Meaning, like, there's nobody else over there. Like, no one else went with the brain.
Right, it's just like some Purgil and Thrawn and Ezra, right?
Right, so, like, if... To have, like... I don't know,
well, I mean, there are multiple types of conflict, right? It doesn't have to be external conflict. It could be... Or if it is, it could be, like, man versus environment. Or man versus self. It could be internal conflict. Like, what if they've been, like, kind of in, like, a... Jedi Temple situation, but not a Jedi Temple because we're in a new galaxy that presumably does not have any concept of Jedi.
God, it's wild.
Yeah. Does this galaxy have Jedi? I bet it doesn't.
Yeah, midichlorians.
What if Ezra's the first Force sensitive in this new galaxy? There's so many possibilities.
Well, this is like the whole concept of like, so we're all carbon-based life forms, but it'd be possible to have a silicone-based life form and they like shit sand. Right, there's a whole video about it. So it's like you could literally have, like a whole different concept of like what life is. They could just all be like gas clouds.
That's exciting. Yeah. But how do you do that in a Star Wars show? I guess we're saying that it would be incredibly difficult. Part of me hopes that they will do it because I would love to see that. I think that that's a really neat. Like, obviously, I keep asking questions about it, so I think that it's a neat avenue to explore. What Star Wars looks like when it's not in the galaxy that we know and love. But at the same time, we do kind of have this other plot that we have to get back to, which I think is what you're getting into, is that like, well, yeah, but we got to bring Thrawn back because he's got to be the heir to the Empire.
Right, like to have like a satisfying, like, conflict resolution, like either a bunch of our guys have to go over to new galaxy, or they need to bring Thrawn back into this galaxy.
Right.
Because right now, like the driving force of the show is like an impossible distance apart.
Yeah, and also we do know, because like I was gonna say, like maybe this is the farthest forward we are in canon, but it's not. We do have the sequel trilogy, which takes place after this. Now, like Thrawn and them are all noticeably absent from the sequels. Yeah. So we could be we could feasibly be totally spinning off. Filoni is apparently making a new movie that's supposed to be like the conclusion of this show. So however this show ends is supposed to end in like a full-length movie. Supposedly.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the downsides to like filling in the blanks between stuff and trying to present like this galaxy level threat when it's like, okay, well, we already know that it's not a big deal.
Palpatine has returned.
So they have to, to obviously it's not a problem when episode 7 comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Thrawn is not. Kylo Ren.
There's no Empire. He's not heir to the First Order.
Well, I mean, there's No, it's true. Kylo Ren isn't like, Snoke, what does the Grand Admiral say?
No, instead of space Nazis, we have space neo-Nazis.
But We get like I guess there's kind of like a small hint because like in the Mandalorian season 3, there's a Shadow Council, right, which has like Brendel and Ular and a bunch of other people who we have no idea, and not Sloane.
Yeah.
Cowards. Bring Sloane back is all we're saying here. But we know that Brendel fathers Armitage Hux, and Brendel is like incredibly dismissive of the idea that Thrawn is there at all.
Yeah.
So it's possible that like the Brendel Hux and his allies and Sloane and everyone, they sort of go into forming the First Order, and there's like this splinter here where Yularen and sort of like, because we also don't see Yularen in the First Order or anything like that. So like it's possible that this is kind of where we splinter off, and we have a whole different exploration that we're going to do with the like last vestige of the Empire or whatever. That's going to be like Thrawn's segment of it, whereas like Brendel and them could be going underground and doing the whole First Order thing.
Yeah, what it makes me think of is like in that's the only thing I have to reference is like the Imperial Remnant is what it's called.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there was all kind of other stuff going on in the galaxy, right? Like there's all these new governments coming up and trying to rebuild after the Empire, but there was the Imperial Remnant, so I could see something like that happening.
Yeah.
And
well, we just don't know. So our speculation. This is us just shooting the shit right
just
here.
Throwing spaghetti at the wall.
I certainly hope that we get to see something, even if it's just a glimpse, like we got with like Tanalorr and like the Jedi Survivor thing, because like that's kind of also a planet that you can only get to through like a wormhole thing.
Yeah.
I kind of hope that we get a glimpse, but I hope, I don't know. At this point in the show, we're at the halfway point. We're really happy with everything that's happened so far. I think I kind of trust them to take it in the best direction from here.
I think what you get if you... Because what Tanalorr reminded me a lot of was like... If you guys played Mass Effect, it reminded me of Mass Effect. The way that
I haven't played Mass Effect. So.
But I think what you get if you like kind of cross those like those concepts where you have like both a utopian kind of Star Trek-esque thing where like a bunch of clean surfaces and everything's like big and shiny, and then there's also like all these other old planets and old alien races that you've just now discovered. I think you kind of get something like that.
All right.
I love Mass Effect. Mass Effect's great, so I'm not going to complain.
But it's not Star Wars.
No.
Although we did call General Rivas Mr. Mass Effect for a very long time.
Yeah, because he looked. Yeah,
he did look like he looked a wee bit like a Mass Effect character, if we're being honest. But I think that's basically, unless you had any other thoughts, I think that's basically going to wrap us up. Oh, I had one more. Sorry, I can't stop talking about this show. It means it's good. You mentioned Deus Ex Machinas, and it kind of felt like that. Deus Ex Machinas.
Oh, Deus Ex something else.
We're on Twitch. We can't use naughty words. It kind of felt like Hera showing up could have been that,
right?
And it wasn't.
Yeah,
and that was jarring.
Yeah, that was again another good point where they were like.
Normally, when a fleet of ships shows up, that's kind of what happens, right? Is that they're able
kicks
to
ass and saves everybody.
Retake everything. Like, look at the end of Rise of Skywalker, when like all of, like the entire like every single ship in the entire Rebel Alliance, including the Ghost, shows up. It can kind of feel like that, and this time it was not. Nope. So this is scary, uncharted territory. We really did not expect them to go here, but we're here. And we're excited to see what comes next. I think we're really happy with, even though our beloved Marrok died.
Yep.
R.I.P. We are still so excited to see what happens next.
When he died, it looked like one of those weird mushrooms you find out when you step on them and a bunch of weird green spores come out.
I like your idea that it's Dathomir and magic.
That's my, what do they call it, headcanon?
Yeah, that's your headcanon. Yeah, that's fine.
He's a reanimated
Go
corpse.
write your fic about that, please.
No.
Fine, maybe I'll
You don't want me to write anything.
Maybe I will write my fic about it.
Yes. You're the one that writes. rights.
Well, on that note, I think we're gonna just stay tuned for next week. Hopefully we'll be more coherent when we're not super sick from being at con.
I feel
I
had it bad.
am really sick, y'all.
We were adventure with the cons?
It was Dragon Con.
Dragon Con. Go to Dragon Con.
Go to Dragon
awesome.
Con. If you saw us there, we were happy to meet you. And if we met there and that's why you're on the stream, then hey, awesome. We're glad to have you here. So have a great week. We'll see you guys. Well, I might see some of you tomorrow because I have an art stream. I'm going to be doing Marin from Jedi Survivor. He's very happy about that. So tune in tomorrow. Marin. Tune in tomorrow. No, Trilla.
Best alive girl, Marin.
Oh, fuck off. Oh my god. Okay.
I love Trilla, but she's dead, so.
Did we see it? Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we super duper saw it. Yeah.
Alright. I'll see some of y'all tomorrow and the rest of y'all next week.
Ciao.